So, call the meeting to order. Roll. Steve.
Yes.
Dean.
Yep.
There's. So, like I said, I did miss the last meeting, but I did see that there was the call to have this. So, if you guys know more detail about it, or it's just to discuss.
Well, for some reason, somebody thinks that we need a compliance officer for the village, so we're here to discuss whether or not we think we need a compliance officer.
Thoughts, opinions?
I don't think we need one.
Steve?
Yeah, I would agree with that. We're paying now for a zoning inspector that, my opinion, is far from doing his job. And he does come through town, and the compliance officer needs to know what's going on in town. And I think if we hire, the zoning inspector, if we hire a compliance officer, we're just spending more money to get done what he should be doing now.
Copy that. So in theory, we just need to get the zoning. I mean, I've heard that too. I think there's people on the zoning board that have said expressed the same thing with him not being from the village and the village around it, going through it. It's hard for him to keep up on things.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, good.
I've had comments from people just in talking, and they'll bring the public council and blah, 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 and they'll bring his name up and say, he don't do anything. I tried to get hold of him, get zoning permit, I tried to get hold of him. One gentleman was building a new house, and he applied for all the permits from him, and he said he didn't show up. The contractors had a date that they were gonna start, but he didn't have to go ahead and go. So he told them, go ahead and start. So they said it's gonna be a couple months if we don't start now, because we got everything here, we got other houses to do. And he said, I got in trouble for it, but he said, I had to. So there's been a lot of cases like that.
Okay. So I guess circling back, if we don't really think we need to hire a new compliance officer. We just need to get the zoning to do what he's supposed to be doing and handling those issues. I know we've had conversations in the past about who's supposed to be handing out the citations and things along that lines and whatnot. So,
I mean, just a brief history of what we've always had. Previous administrator used to work with the police chief and the zoning inspector, Gabe, and they all worked together to get things done. And now that we've had some changes of administration and things like that, that's not happening. So, our administrator isn't up to date on zoning rules and laws like our previous one. Sarah probably knew more about zoning than our administrator now. So, she helped, and she was the eyes of the village. She was here every day. She lived here. She drove around. She seen what was going on. If she seen stuff that was out of place, then she made mention of it and she would handle it. So now all of a sudden, we don't have that luxury of having Sarah as administrator anymore. I mean, she did a great job. Some people disagree with that, but I think she did fine. And now, in the job description of our administrator now, it does not address zoning.
yeah.
So, the luxury we had of people going above and beyond is gone.
which I know he did say that he's been going out, I think with George once a week to drive around and look at things.
Mm-hmm.
I guess then I don't know if they're passing it on to Gabe to.
That's what we had conversations before when we tried to get them all together and say, all three of you need to work cohesively together here. They all know what's not proper and what's not right and what needs to be addressed and what needs to be looked at. It's just a matter of bringing it to the proper person's attention to get the procedure done. And then if it's not happening, then that's where the problem lies. You know, I don't know if it's a lack of communication between these entities that, you know, are our eyes in the battlefield of the village. I mean,
There are, and I'm not gonna bring on locations, there are instances in town that I've complained about for 2 years,
Yeah.
and there's nothing being done.
it always comes down to, is it an ordinance? Is it zoning? What is it? You know, and it's like, is there an ordinance for that? That's what I'm seeing, you know.
Well, the big thing I'm getting in the job is, well, I'll tell so-and-so, and I'll tell so-and-so, and well, the building inspector, and where's he? I mean,
So basically, kind of what it's boiling down to is we've got 3 people that are kind of supposed to be our eyes and ears for the village that are all over saying it's not my job. So that's why we're here sitting. Are we going to create another position and pay a zoning inspector or a compliance officer? My research on compliance officers ranges anywhere from $125,000 to $39,000 a year with full benefits.
yeah, the average in Ohio is between $700 and $900 a week.
Well, and to be fair, you'd be better off just putting more money in the police department and letting them do it because
Well-
we need more policing anyway. So
But they're not interested.
right, but I think part of that is because they don't have the manpower to do it.
So this kind of draws us full circle back with our zoning inspector contract.
Yeah,
He come to us and said, if you want me to do this, because that was the thing, when he did that, he agreed to that with the fact that he had people that were above and beyond helping him to do the job. So for all those years, when Sarah was here and helping him, it was working fine. It was well within his parameters to handle the job as he seen fit because Sarah was picking up all the extra slack. But now that's not true. So then he come to us and said, I want to renegotiate my contract if I'm not going to have help. And so then we kind of looked at it and said, no, you just need to do your job, which I don't think was fair to Gabe, but we were supposed to sit down and talk to him a couple times and we never did.
yeah.
You know, I know that there's just been a few things that happens and we know in this government stuff that nothing happens overnight. So everything gets kicked down the road until somebody screams off. So, you know, and that's where my proposal was, is why haven't we engaged with Gabe more and asked him, are you interested in this job? Are you interested in this extra work? He had mentioned to us that he could possibly be interested in picking up the extra work, what we're asking a compliance officer to do, but he wanted compensated for it, and I agree with that. So if we're willing to pay money for compensation to hire somebody, why wouldn't we just ask him and now look at renegotiating this contract now that we're where we're at? Unless people don't feel like he's doing a good enough job and you want to get rid of him, but then at that point I just say, who are we going to replace it with?
That's my question. If we would in fact increase his pay, would he do it?
Well, I think if this is what the route we want to do, then basically what we do is we just establish what the rules are of his job, like a guideline, a summary of his job, and then have him sit down and say, these are the things that this job requires, not even his job, but just the job in general. And then this is the job, this is what it requires. Are you willing to do it? And if he says no, then we find somebody else.
Ideally, my opinion is the zoning inspector should live in town. He doesn't drive to town to work. He said, I've never been at work because he drives, he lives over by Patrick Henry, teaches Patrick Henry, and goes the shortest route possible. And I understand that, I would too.
Yeah.
But that doesn't involve working in town.
Yeah.
And so much stuff we talk about, he has no clue what's going on.
Well, and it seems like if they're going to, you should probably go through town once a week or once every 2 weeks, or once you have an established list, like circle back and check those things.
But, you know, if we're going to establish a compliance officer, we'd have to establish all those rules anyway. So if we want to establish a position and then ask him if he's interested in the position, or if he says no, and we have to try to find somebody else to do it. The question is, who's going to do it?
Right. Well, I guess that would be it. You can always find somebody, I suppose.
Usually it's based on compensation, if you make it worth their while. I would recommend paying like $35 an hour and getting like 8 hours a month.
Yeah, the compliance officer is not an everyday job.
No, but if we just tie it into his other, like into the job description, And then that's like you have to spend 8 hours of your whatever 40. I don't know how many hours he's going to put in. I guess that would be a thing to establish too. Is just because I know he gave us that job description, but like we said, it was more of a. I think he even said that he cut and pasted off of somebody's like something else. So there was a lot of things that were not relevant to.
Yeah, we never addressed it. We looked at it and said, yeah, this ain't gonna happen, and then we never readdressed it. And he's never brought it up. I know he's had some issues. I mean, the fact that some of the stuff that's been going on that's unprecedented in our village here lately. I mean, somebody's got the whole town worked up and stirred up about things that's been laying dormant for 30 years, and I'm not sure why. But now all of a sudden, you know, everything's upside down and topsy-turvy and zoning can't work. Or it don't get done, where we've never had a problem up until the last 2 years. So I'm not sure, you know, he's kind of been overwhelmed with everything he's got. I understand where he's at. I mean, I'm just kind of surprised that he's even still here with all the crap that's going on. So.
Okay. Well, so I guess then we just need to establish the job description and then give it to him and see if he's interested in it. And then I mean, the other thing becomes the performance evaluation or whatever. And I guess once you have an established job description, then that makes it easier to
check the boxes.
Yes. So if you're not, you know, like you can even say if you went to school, put like probationary for 6 months, see how it goes. Because I know there's been other people that have complained about a lack of communication. Like being able to get a hold of him and getting answers on things, and so there has to be something established, whether or not, you know, even if you say, you know, he'll get back to you on Tuesdays and Fridays or something like that. At least there's a
definite,
a set thing, so people don't go, well, cool, it's been 3 weeks. They kind of go, well, I'll have to wait till Tuesday. So if it's Saturday morning, then you're waiting till Tuesday. If it's you know, Tuesday night, you're waiting till
typically
Friday.
Those time ranges don't help. You need to about have a 8-hour day, and that's where it helped when the former administrator was screening that and taking that and handling as much as she could. So, you know, I mean, she was probably undervalued in that position, but.
So Mayor, should I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, Mayor. Hi. No, ma'am, we're still going on. Okay. Okay, one meeting to the next. All right, we'll see you. Okay, thank you. No. Okay. Okay, yep. She just got done with the zoning meeting, so she's coming here.
Wonder if Gabe was there.
I would assume. But I don't know.
Might be a good time to have him here for that, because he could have input on this position.
Yeah.
But anyways,
I mean, yeah. So basically, then it becomes ours, since we're the Personnel Committee. Are we responsible for establishing the job description, or is that the mayor, since he falls under?
it's a good question.
So I guess we'd have to figure that out.
I would say probably both. I don't know, but who else is gonna do it if we don't?
Yeah.
But I think the mayor should get involved.
Well, either way, I think she'll probably have to sign off.
The administrators, or both.
He's a direct report to her, so she would have to agree with. She's fine with it, even if it is us that comes up with the. But then that would be something that we'd have to run through council, because everybody would have to approve of it, because it's not like you have to get everybody on board.
But you know, we're just here discussing whether or not we think we need to make the position. I mean, we don't have to build it right now.
Right, correct.
I mean, we're just kind of having a discussion on what we think we can bring to council, but we're only half the council, so we'll see what happens. What we bring to them anyways.
Mayor here can't decide anything.
So basically, our recommendation is that we do not need a compliance officer. We just need to restructure the job description for the zoning person and then make sure that that's what they're willing to.
I think we're still in a position of, like you said, figuring out who's supposed to be doing what. You know, we know our police chief is supposed to handle all the ordinances. So if there's an ordinance that's a problem, then he's the one that should be handling the ordinance issues. And then if it's a zoning problem, then that's where our zoning inspector, I think, should be handling the issues. So the biggest thing is defining what's the issue, and that's where when we have something that comes up in the village, then we at least need them to meet and discuss it.
Yeah.
Say, is this your problem or my problem? When ultimately it's the village's problem. So, you know, people that are just not good neighbors don't help. You know,
And that needs to be determined when we sit down and draw this thing up. Whose job is it?
I mean, we pretty much know whose job it is.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of getting somebody to do something about it.
Alright. Well, I guess that's probably her showing up so we can.
We'll see if she has any input
Yeah.
on what she thinks. Did you unlock the door?
But he did it, yeah. Just so we change your mind, we don't want her here. Yep.
Hi,
Hello.
how are you guys?
We're marvelous.
You know where the light switch is at?
Marvelous.
You what?
You know where the light switch is at?
Oh, light switch, no, I don't.
We tried that one.
That's not what?
Yeah, no, you're good. We made it this far. So
Right, Bob.
I
no worries.
don't know, I'm not in charge of the lights.
Alright.
Right, you're usually on one again.
I don't know.
Good windows.
Yeah, sorry.
It's fine.
So Mayor,
I'm gonna sit right here.
we'll catch you up. Basically, we're talking about the need for a compliance officer. We kind of determined that we don't necessarily think at this point we need one. We just need to rewrite the job description for Gabe and then make sure he's on board with doing the things that we want him to do.
Okay,
And then also establishing, I think, like we said, who's in charge of what as far as, like, what steps the police, the administrator, the zoning, like who's in charge of, you know, handing out what and all those things and making sure they're all on board. And I think we agree that if they could all work together. I know in the past, Dean had said they did. I know Brian has been going out, I think with George once a week or something like that to kind of look around for things and report them, I assume, to Gabe. But so we kind of, again, establishing that job description and establishing the steps that need to make sure that they're being followed properly. And then if we get to where, you know, if Gabe doesn't want to do it, then we would just look for someone to fill the position.
somebody else.
You know, I think Steve expressed, and there's other people that have expressed concern about him not being from the village, so that he's not in the village. But I think, you know, if we put that in the job description, that we need you here
You pay
You know,
visits.
X amount of days, X amount of hours, wanted, you know, spend through the village, then, you know, if he's, again, it's kind of like you write it up the way we need it to be, and then if it's agreeable, then so be it, and if it's not, then we move forward and find someone that will comply with being
Right.
the compliance person. So.
I gotta ask you guys though, this is for council members.
Yeah, we've had this conversation before,
Isn't this a
so.
quorum?
Probably.
Yeah, we've had this conversation before, but we've been told so we just go on, so,
Can't fight it.
nope, so. But yeah, Brian said that, Cam said that, it's been discussed, everybody's aware of what's going on, so we just, but, yeah. So,
So anyways, we're kind of down to the point where at this point, I don't think we need to structure a compliance officer position.
That's why I came out, because I wanted to know what your decision was as to how are we gonna pay, hours, you know, everything.
Well, and that's the other thing, we said we're not sure who
Who would,
would come up with the job description, like if that's your thing, your position to do that because he's under you, or if it's ours as a personnel committee. So I guess we need to figure out that as far as a little guidance on who's establishing that. And either way, if it's us, then we would assume he would have to sign off on it, or vice versa. If you
Yeah.
come up with the council has to sign it, either way, it'll go to council, I guess, at the end of all of it. But just making sure we follow the proper steps so we don't.
somebody will have to actually figure out what the value of that position is.
Mhm.
And
That's
I
true.
think there's,
If
I
you
think
want to
there's,
establish one.
yeah, if we decide to establish, if council decides they want to disregard our decision, or our recommendation, I should say, not decision, but a recommendation.
Mhm.
If they want to disregard that, then at that point we'll have to figure out how to structure the position. And we definitely need guidance on that. No, I don't know if Kevin has any idea. I mean, he's pretty knowledgeable about the financial side, so he
Yeah.
might have
Oh, yeah.
knowledge of where we can find information on pay structure. I mean, I've just done some Google search and I've seen anywhere from $39,000 to $125,000 a year for this position, so with full benefits. I don't know if it's that valuable to the village.
Yeah, well, not in this village. We don't.
Not unless we can find $500,000 worth of income every
Yeah.
year for some reason.
But so as you're setting right now, we're gonna rewrite,
I think that we need to
Gabe's-
figure out and talk to Gabe, because, you know,
Okay.
I remember when we had our conversation with Gabe before, he wasn't unwilling to take on more work, but he felt as though his contract, he was giving us what the contract was valued at, and I don't disagree. Because as we had discussed before, he had a lot of help from Sarah
yeah.
when he agreed to the terms of his contracts before, but now he no longer has all that help.
Mhm.
So that's what I was saying. Sarah was probably going above and beyond her duty to help him when she
I
was
think
here.
She was,
So now we're missing that luxury of having her on.
yeah. I think Sarah just did it because she wouldn't say no, she wouldn't do it.
So now we're
We'd
just,
bring her stuff and she'd do it.
now it's just kind of laying into the things that she did all the time, that she took care of because he did work full time and she was here every day.
Yeah.
And she's seen what was in the village and she drove around the village and she's seen all this.
Mhm.
We don't have that luxury anymore. So now, you know, and my conversation with Gabe is that he wasn't really unwilling to do it, but he wanted compensated for it, and he brought us a contract and we
Yeah.
never did anything with it. So I think we're at that point where, you know, maybe we need to legitimately sit down and have a conversation with Gabe
Okay,
and figure out what he needs and
yeah.
what he really needs.
Well, and at the same time, what we expect out of him. If he disagrees with it,
Yeah.
I mean, we can make a contract. If he's got a contract, then we can just sub right into the contract what we want until we scribble on it enough. We come up with a
yeah,
consensus of what we want, what he is willing to give.
yeah. Well, I've rode around with Steve. We've looked at a lot of problem areas here in town.
Do we have a list?
Yeah, we had a list. I gave the ones that George said applied to him. I gave him a list, and I gave the other one to Gabe.
Because that was kind of another conversation that we had also is when there's an issue that's around town that we're seeing that, you know, the neighbors don't care for, but I don't think it's the duty of the neighbor to turn in your neighbor,
Yeah,
then whose job is it to pick up whatever the violation is? Is it a zoning violation or is it an ordinance violation?
And that's been a month ago that we drove around,
uh-huh,
and nothing been done.
yeah. Well, George has been here, so if he hasn't done anything, that's on George.
Well, I
Gabe's
don't
been
know
on
where it's
vacation, he
I
said,
don't know what
but,
the division is, if this is George's and this is Gabe's, and I don't know where that's at, but on either side, because I keep track.
Mhm, I know you do.
Nothing been done.
nothing.
And it just kind of seems like whenever we bring anything up, it's like this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we've had this conversation. We actually we sat down afterwards uptown one night and had a meeting and met with George and we tried to establish that them three work together, and I don't think it's happening.
I know.
Maybe they all just don't like each other, I don't know.
Well, I mean, not to, but I think George they're short, so I think he's spending his time doing
Police duty?
police things, and you know, that's, obviously, we've been trying to fill that position for
Yeah.
a while, but we'll see, maybe we can get a little more money in that pot, so.
And as far as considering that Gabe doesn't live in town and he doesn't work in town, he's out, you know. That's part of the job,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
I made a comment earlier, it's my opinion that the zoning officer should live in town. He doesn't have to work in town.
It'd be a rough job, boy, they'd eat you up on Facebook.
Oh, yeah.
They'd just destroy you.
Well, that'd be like-
The social media warriors.
I have no idea.
I-
Well, Nick Dunn, I don't think, I could be wrong, I don't think we had the police chief was the zoning inspector, because he would come around and check, make sure you had a zoning permit, and would do that kind of stuff. I think the police chief was zoning inspector.
Before we hired a zoning inspector?
Gabe tells me he's been in it for 20 years.
Well, and that's what it might be, but I'm sure that the police chief used to be.
I didn't know who was before, so.
I don't know if I think that position was created, but,
Yeah.
and that could have been just a changing of the guards and the police chief too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it seems like when you have a change of the guards, then the rules don't apply, yeah.
Change for sure. The fine print changes. All right, well,
So at this point, you know, I guess my recommendation would be just to make reevaluate our contract with the zoning inspector and find out what he's willing to do and not do. And then we can decide from there if we need to create a compliance officer.
I don't know if any place that's in actual writing that this is your job.
We tried to establish that, but the contract he gave us, like we said, was kind of a copy paste, and
Yeah,
there was a lot of stuff in there that didn't apply, so we couldn't agree to that contract.
Yeah.
We needed to have a meeting with him, and we never
he
did.
never did.
Perhaps we should sit down first and get our expectations, and then present them and say, here's what we're looking at.
And see if he
Here's what we want
agrees.
you to do, yeah. So that we're a little bit organized and we'll meet with it.
we'll assume there's a contract in place, so in theory, we could work, like you said, work off of that and just add, subtract.
I've got a copy of what he gave us.
Yeah, and
Well, and again, what he gave us, there was a lot of pages of like stuff that didn't apply. Like, yeah, no, and he even said that he had taken it from another
Yeah.
whatever. So it's just, there were some points I think that fit, but a lot of stuff that did not fit.
And I think that whole deal was kind of rushed because he was feeling pressure, and
Yeah.
he felt like we didn't like what he was doing, and I think he was kind of under the gun behind everything, and it was kind of rushed.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have no compliance officer at this point. Rewrite job description, present it to Gabe, and then make sure we establish who's in charge of each step. And I guess, do you know who will be in charge of the job description? I mean, would that be the personnel committee, or is that you since he falls on you? We'll have to figure that
Yeah,
out. So we do it
I have no
right.
idea.
So we can figure. I can ask Brian or check with Cam and see. I'm sure that way we again make sure we do it correctly. So.
I just found out tonight that Cam was in the hospital.
Oh.
He hurt his
You
foot.
might not.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Well, if that. Anything else? I don't think there wasn't anything else. I know I wasn't at that meeting. I said I watched the video, but I don't think there was anything else we needed to discuss just outside of that.
We just said it's a compliance officer, whether or not it's, everybody said we needed one, so they said we should meet and discuss it.
so the next step is find out where our guidelines are and call another meeting to set up the.
Yeah, I guess I
Where we're at.
can check with Brian and Cam. Like, I'll find out who technically would be responsible for coming up with the details of the job description, and then if it's us, then we'll have to call another meeting to do it. If it's the mayor, then I'll let her know and
No,
we can get it established that way. And then, yes, I guess we have to agree on it because then we have to take it to, well, then Gabe
you
has
guys
to
have
agree
to
to it.
agree on it, and then you present it to council.
I guess, yes, we have to get council first and then give it to Gabe, because if council doesn't agree with it, it doesn't matter if
Right.
Gabe does, so us, then council, then Gabe,
Yeah, that's all right.
seems like the steps, so. Alright, well.
Motion to adjourn.
I will. You want to second that, Steve?
I'll go second that.
So done at 6:09.
It's a long meeting.
How many?
Long meeting.
Oh,
The camera off, Bryce.